Hello, thank you for taking the time today to learn more about citizen and community science. My name is Sarah Newman, and I work with the citizen science platform CitSci, a project of the Natural Resources Ecology Lab at Colorado State University. Over the past decade and a half, I've had the privilege of working for a number of organizations at the intersection of data, science, citizen science, and community-based monitoring, from the hyper-local to the global level. My background is in wildlife management and invasive species science, and I love that I now get to combine those skills with working with people all over the world to tackle difficult challenges through this kind of work. The title of my talk today is Citizen Science Locally, Impact Globally, and the reason for that is very intentional. There was a time when citizen science projects designed and implemented at the local level might only collect data that was only ever used at the local level. But in today's world of interconnectivity, even the smallest of projects can make their data discoverable and reusable for global goals if it is designed and implemented well. The reason I'm here today is to share with you some exciting work we're doing in Salt Lake County with folks involved in the restoration of the Big Bend of the Jordan River. There's a panel discussion later this morning at 10:10 titled Community Science in the Jordan River Watershed and Overview. And there will be a lot of great speakers at that panel, and I encourage you to join us to learn more about the project there. By the end of our time together at this presentation today, I hope you're going to feel confident knowing how to get started with your own citizen science or community science ideas, have a better understanding of some of the work we're doing at the Big Bend, and know where to find tools to help you get involved in your own projects. I'll present a number of resources throughout the talk, and there are even more that I won't have time to mention. If you're still interested in learning more, email us at admin@citsci.org after this talk, and we'll send you our one-page handout, 7 citizen science resources for practitioners. Now let's get to the good stuff. First things first, we need to talk about definitions. If you've been thinking about citizen science at all the last few years, you may know that there's a healthy debate going on about terminology. I'll keep it brief here and say that there's 2 main terms that are coming to the top of the list: citizen science and community science. But these 2 terms are not as interchangeable as you might first think. Citizen science is, simply put, the process of engaging the public in scientific research. While some people might say that citizen refers to all citizens of the world, the term citizen can be alienating and even intimidating to some groups that we wish to work with. So there's definitely room for improvement in that phrase. And you may be tempted then to just adopt the term community science. But before you do, we need to look at its definition. Community science actually refers to distinct grassroots practices of those often underserved by science. And that term has its own long and storied history. So while I can't tell you which term is going to be right for your project, I can give you this resource. I encourage you to pause the video right now and take a moment to search for and download the paper cited here called Inclusion in Citizen Science: The Conundrum of Rebranding. The 15 authors on this piece have lifetimes of experience exploring community and citizen science spaces. This piece will surely help you better understand where your project might lie on this continuum. Okay, so regardless of what term you end up deciding best fits your project, there's something you're going to need to know right away. Citizen science is a process. And for simplicity, I've depicted it here as a circular process. What it most definitely is not is a linear process from start to finish. This depiction is also a bit of an idealized version of the process, and your real path is probably going to be more circuitous than this one. And that's perfectly normal. Try to prepare for that and roll with it. In the following slides, we'll talk about each of the steps in more detail. But let's take a sneak peek at them first. The most successful projects start with discovery, learning about potential partners and your audience. The feedback you receive in the discovery phase will then need to be processed into something you can use to see patterns and themes. And from there, you'll pull out questions and goals and identify the resources you'll need to meet your goals. You'll create a plan for communicating your results with your audiences, as well as figure out how you might handle new feedback along the way. All of this will set you up for prototyping and testing out your project ideas, so you can make adjustments and work out the inevitable problems that will come up. And finally, you can get out there and start implementing your project. On each of the process slides, you're also going to see a calendar icon, as well as a suggestion of how much time you might want to plan into your schedule for each phase of the process. These are just guidelines that we suggest, but they're ones that we've learned after working with hundreds of projects over the years, and it may help you in your planning process. Okay, so let's start at the beginning with discovery. When you're thinking about beginning a new project, one of the best things you can do is to interview and listen to as many people as possible that intersect with the space you are interested in. This is a process known as customer discovery in the business sector, and it also works extremely well in citizen science. You'll want to develop a set of questions to ask potential partner organizations, community groups, and audience members. This process is focused on learning, not selling. And so we encourage you to ask a lot of questions about other people's thoughts and opinions in this space, and spend little to no time actually talking about your own ideas for your project. We recommend that you try to interview at least 20 people or as many as 100 or more. And more is always better in this process because it gives you richer information to work with. And it's helpful to interview individuals rather than groups of people to get the most authentic responses. We also strongly recommend that you end every interview by asking who else you should talk to. Now, this process can take weeks or even months, depending on how quickly and how intensely you want to go about it. When we started working with the Big Bend project, we talked to groups already working in the area, including Tracy Aviary and Sageland Collaborative. And that's despite the fact that the people on our team, some of them have been working in this region for decades. We still wanted to get these other folks' thoughts right away. So here are a few examples of the types of questions we asked during our interviews. What are you or your organization's priorities? Why are those your priorities? What kind of data do you currently collect? Do you currently lead or participate in any citizen science projects? And if so, which ones? And what comes to mind when I mention the Jordan River? So these kinds of probing questions can help you understand the priorities and challenges that the different groups you hope to work with might face. It also gets at what kinds of data are already being collected so that you can not replicate work that's already being done. So take a moment here to pause the video if you'd like and brainstorm a list of 10 or more potential people you might interview that could inform your citizen or community science project ideas. Okay, after you've gone through all of your interviews, you're going to be loaded up with a lot of new information. Some of it's going to be hopefully exactly what you were hoping to hear. And some of it might be exactly the opposite of what you were hoping to hear. Either way, you're going to need to get it all organized in one place. And we often use spreadsheets to do this in order to get your mind around all of it. You may choose to organize it by theme, by audience, by different questions that have come up or different challenges you might face. Whatever it is, get it all in one place so you can really take a good look at it. There's different ways you can do this, and at CitSci, we often use a process called Situation Assessment and Stakeholder Analysis, or SASA for short. With the SASA process, you organize the feedback you've received into a set of audiences or partners listed on this example as stakeholders on the left, and then a set of themes along the top. And then you start to check the boxes where those audiences and their feedback connect with those themes and overlap. Through this process, you can start to see which topics are coming up the most, and that can often help you decide where to take your project next. In this example, the group we worked with didn't have a good idea of where they wanted to engage their community when they first started, but they knew they wanted to make better and stronger connections. So it was a very open-ended process. And by the end, they were working on an angler project looking at mayfly emergence, which is something they didn't even have on their radar. If you want to dig deeper into the SASA process, there's a really great seminar on this by my colleague, Dr. Stacy Lin from Colorado State University. And it's available on YouTube at the link or at the name here on the Citizen Science Association's YouTube page. So I encourage you to take a look at that if you're interested. All right. Once you've decided on a theme or project to pursue, you're going to want to take a bit of time to evaluate whether the idea you now have in mind would be best served through citizen science or not. Michael Pocock, a researcher in the UK, and his colleagues created a really useful decision tree for this process, and it's available in the report, Choosing and Using Citizen Science. The decision tree starts with questions like whether or not some of the project tasks can be done online, if it's possible to take the types of observations you wish to do safely, if sensors are needed, and if those sensors are available to the public, a whole host of questions. And once you work through that decision tree, you're going to have a pretty good sense of whether your project or parts of your project are suited for citizen science. The report that includes this decision tree is also available for free. And if you want to pause the video right now, the link for where to find this report is below. In the case of the Jordan River Project, we've learned over time that some of the pieces of the project are going to be great for citizen science engagement, and others are going to be better suited for professional staff. And we'll talk about those different pieces in a moment. Okay, assuming you've made it through all the steps so far and have decided that citizen science is still a good fit, the next thing you'll want to do is decide on the question or questions or monitoring tasks that you'll pursue based on the feedback you've received and the goals of your project. With the Big Bend Restoration Project, the citizen science being developed is also being informed by the goals and objectives of the formal restoration plan for the site. And one of the most important monitoring goals laid out in this restoration plan that also happens to be of interest to several of our partners is understanding how bird populations change following the restoration of the Big Bend site. With this main goal as our guide, we moved on to the next step in the process, identifying resources. There are a number of organizations with existing resources and protocols that fit the needs of this particular project, many right here from Utah, including bird monitoring protocols led by the staff at Tracy Aviary, water quality protocols from the Utah Water Watch Project, and riparian assessments that are done by staff at Sageland Collaborative. And this kind of situation is often the case. There's so many fantastic citizen science projects already in the world that there's often a protocol or a project that you can base your ideas on or adapt to suit the needs of your area. CitSci is one organization that can help guide you to those other projects, and SciStarter and Zooniverse, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, are a few others. We strongly encourage you to work with existing protocols first before inventing something new, because this helps lead to your data being more usable or reusable by other organizations or by bigger projects and programs you may not even be thinking about yet later on. So definitely always start with what's available where you can. Okay, so let's take a quick review of where we are in this process. At this point, we've talked about customer discovery, we've processed feedback, we've determined our research or monitoring questions and goals, and identified existing resources we can use directly or adapt. And if not, we've created our own. And now it's time to think about communications. Here, you want to begin with the end in mind. Figure out the answers to the who, what, when, why, and how of communicating the results and progress of your project. Who's going to own the data? These are governance type questions. How will the results be shared? When and in what format are they going to be shared? As a scientist and probably as a land manager, you've most likely heard or been told to figure out what analyses we're going to need to do before you start collecting data. And that is also true for communicating the data. In the case of the Big Bend Restoration Project, data about the site already exist in a number of places, but they're not all easily accessible by all the partners. And so we're exploring a number of options for data sharing, including a possible hub page on CitSci, among other ideas. So that's a process that we're still working on, but it's really important so that we can keep everyone informed of what's happening in this region. All right, the next step is really fun, the prototyping and iterating phase. This is when you get out in the field or in the lab and start prototyping your project protocols. With the Big Bend project, some of the protocols are already being fully implemented, such as the one shown here in pictures of the Tracy Aviary, with volunteers collecting bird data at the site in 2019. But other parts of the project, like the plant sampling, are still being worked out, and we hope will be prototyped this coming season. It's really important to note that prototyping process can sometimes take a season or two to work through. So be sure to keep that in mind as you're planning your project. Finally, we come to the last part of our citizen science process, the implement and share phase. This phase is the culmination of all the hard work you've put in up to this point, and it's also often the most rewarding. Here you can see data from the Utah Water Watch team, for example. As of early November 2021, they've already documented over 6,000 observations from 185 team members at 543 locations around the state, which is pretty exciting. It'd be a lot harder to do with paid staff alone. Okay, we're going to switch gears here for a second and talk about CitSci as a platform and how you might use it as a tool for your own citizen or community science projects. CitSci is a hosting platform at the highest level for both types of projects, citizen and community science projects of all kinds of sizes and topic areas. If you visit our projects page, you can search for projects by name and soon by topic. We also have an organization filter for groups like Leave No Trace, who run several projects on our platform. We also offer several governance types as well, which you can see on these orange and green buttons. And that allows some projects to be open to the public, others choose to be member-based. Some projects choose to share their data publicly, and some choose to keep it private for a variety of research reasons. If we click on the Utah Water Watch project, you'll see the landing page that has information about the project. And then you'll also see tabs for data, members, resources, a forum, and other analyses and results. Now I'm logged in here as a project manager. So you can also see some yellow tabs, which are project manager tab tools. In the members tab, you can view members and request to join your project if you are the project manager. If you click on the data tab, you can see a table of observations that have been taken for this project. And if you click on a specific observation, you can view the data for this particular observation in detail. And this one here includes pictures of the site that was being observed, as well as a map of where the location is. If you click on a location, you can actually view all the data that have been taken at that particular site. On the resources page, you can upload paper data sheets for those that want to take data on paper in the field, training materials, visuals, maps, data, other things that you may have collected or created for your project. And then in the project management tools, you have a number of different things available to you. So as a project manager, you're allowed to you can build different electronic data sheets that people can fill out either on their computer or on their mobile devices. You can upload lists of predefined locations if your project needs those kinds of things, and then you can assign those predefined locations to specific volunteers. Or you can also create your data sheet in such a way that your volunteers can record the locations that they're going to on their own. Lastly, we've recently updated mobile apps for Apple and Android that sync with the CitSci website. So your volunteers can record data in the field directly on their devices, or like I said earlier, they can use paper data sheets and go back and record their data on a computer or other device when they get back home. And these are just some of the tools we have on offer. It would be a long talk if I showed you everything. So if you want to explore more, I definitely encourage you to visit CitSci.org and take a look around. There's just two more things I want to share with you here before we wrap up. Some of you may have heard about Zooniverse, a citizen science platform that specializes in projects that need the help of the crowd to analyze and annotate huge collections of images, like those from a space telescope or a series of wildlife cameras. And over the past few years, CitSci and Zooniverse have teamed up on an exciting new integration that we just released recently. Through this integration, projects can leverage the power of both platforms to collect volunteer-contributed images through CitSci, and then upload them in near real time to the Zooniverse for subsequent analysis. In the case of the pictured project here, the researcher was looking at mountain goats and coat shedding, and she was hoping to have volunteers from around the world upload photos that they had taken recently or in the past to better understand mountain goat coat shedding over time. But it was difficult to do that through the Zooniverse alone because there wasn't a way for the volunteers to upload their own individual photos. Zooniverse specialized in bulk uploading huge amounts of photos. But you can upload photos through CitSci. And so now, through this integration, a project like this could leverage both those tools to study this kind of project. So if you're sitting on a project idea that would benefit from different photo analysis or annotation of photos, then we would consider this an integration that you should definitely check out. We have a blog coming out next week that details this integration a little bit more, and I encourage you to take a look at it. This is going to open up some new opportunities for citizen and community science that weren't available before. We're also actively recruiting some projects to test this idea out. So if you're interested, please send us an email at admin@citsci.org. Okay, the last item I want to talk about is another integration we're working on that's nearly complete. SciStarter is a platform that specializes in marketing citizen and community science projects from around the world to volunteers. And in the recent past, we had an integration with them that allowed you to automatically share your project's profile to the SciStarter platform, providing you with a really great way to advertise and recruit volunteers to your project. That integration has been undergoing an update, and we're going to relaunch it really soon. So stay tuned for that. Okay, as we wrap up our time together, I just want to thank you again for taking some time today to learn about citizen and community science. If you have questions or ideas you'd like to discuss, please reach out to us at CitSci. In addition to the platform, we offer consulting services to help organizations take their ideas and turn them into projects. And we often co-write grants or contracts, and we can help you strategize how to collect your data so that it can be amplified regionally, nationally, and globally. We're especially excited to see the Big Bend of the Jordan River Restoration Project coming together. Imagine for a moment if this type of data that's being collected at the Big Bend were also available on all other parts of the river, or even on other rivers throughout the state. What kind of questions could you answer if you had the help of the community to collect data like this? Thank you again for listening today and finishing this entire talk. Just a reminder to join us at 10:10 for the community science on the Jordan River panel discussion. And if you're interested, email us at admin@citsci.org if you'd like our one-page handout, 7 citizen science resources for practitioners. I hope you enjoy the rest of the symposium, and I hope I get to meet a few of you in the near future. Thank you.